Talk to a Major General who was a former Assistant Chief of the Defence Staff at the Ministry of Defence in just a moment. First, though, Sam Kiley joins us, World Affairs Editor at The Independent. Sam, very good afternoon to you. What do you make of the language that Donald Trump is now using in relation to Vladimir Putin in Ukraine? I personally haven't heard him be that critical of the Russian president, I think, ever. Have you?
Yeah, Ben, I'm afraid I'm going to pour quite a lot of cold water on quite a lot of what you've just said. First of all, the language, we've heard it before quite a lot over the last 3 or 4 weeks, a sense of frustration that Putin, and he repeated it 3 times at least during this press conference, but he said in the past, this is Trump of Putin, that he's very nice on the phone and then he goes on to bomb Ukraine. He has even sworn about Putin in the past. So there is a sense of frustration from the Trump administration and from Trump himself that he isn't getting the sort of delivery that he wanted to see out of the Kremlin. And then there is this deal. Now, this is a deal. This isn't a gift of weapons to NATO. It's a great big whopping arms sale. If he'd made the same announcement out of Saudi Arabia, which he had in his first term, the first thing he did in his first term was announce a similar or claim a similar level of sales. He'd be celebrated for the boost to the US industrial superstructure. That's what this is all about. It's about selling weapons to NATO, a US ally. He then said if it's up to NATO what they do with these weapons, which is a small shift in that NATO and the US may now have agreed that longer range weapons can be used by the Ukrainians, but they've been pretty limited in supply. But they have been used, and of course the Ukrainians have developed their own. So I don't think that this represents a very significant shift, but rather a continued drift of frustration towards the Kremlin. The threat of 100% sanctions on a country that the US has, in statistical terms, zero trade with, means absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. He's not talking about ending some of the, or trying to help end some of the bilateral trading agreements that the Russians have with oil to India and China and elsewhere. And he isn't talking about even giving Zelensky a tactical edge. And then on top of that, he's also repeated the idea, and most people will have missed this, that Zelensky knows the parameters of future negotiations. Now, those parameters, as set by Donald Trump, give Putin almost everything that Putin would have wanted on day one at the end of negotiations. In other words, he hasn't even shifted his pro-Russian position. He's just putting a little bit more pressure and making some money on the side.
But Sam, it's interesting. It's interesting and it's significant, isn't it, that Donald Trump now seems to hold Vladimir Putin responsible for the fact this war is ongoing, having spent the early weeks and months of his presidency suggesting it was all Volodymyr Zelensky's fault.
Well, he's always blamed Biden, actually. But I think that, yes, I mean, he's putting a bit more pressure on the tactical responses of Putin to Donald Trump's phone calls. He doesn't think much more widely than that. He doesn't like Zelensky. He didn't like the fact that Zelensky is an international hero and he is not, and he bitterly resents it. Now he feels that Putin has made him look like a bit of a Charlie. Which, of course, he has. He's appeared to be Putin's patsy through all of this. He hasn't, though, done he certainly hasn't done a U-turn. It will be, though, very, very important for NATO and those that actually support Ukraine to be able to buy US weapons. It's a mystery to me as to why they hadn't been doing it in the past. But now at least there is an agreement. It's just an agreement to sell guns and ammo to their allies in NATO. It's not a really big shift.
Sam, interesting. Thank you very much indeed for coming on. Sam Kiley, World Affairs Editor at The Independent. Listening to that, Major General Jonathan Shaw, former Assistant Chief of the Defence Staff at the Ministry of Defence, now a consultant for massed security. Great to have you with us, Major General. Sam there saying this, you heard him saying this is hot air effectively, no real change. What's your assessment of what we've heard this evening?
I'm afraid I agree with quite a lot of what Sam says. He's a good observer of these things. Yeah, well, let's not look a gift horse in the mouth. If this is a softening of position, if this is going to increase the amount of weapons that get to Ukraine, that's a good thing. So let's pocket that one. But is this a fundamental shift in Trump's position? I see no evidence of that. Trump is not by nature a strategic thinker. He's not a strategic actor. He's a tactical player. He will have made this gesture and he'll be seeing what reaction he gets from Russia. And the Russian reaction he will then react to as well. So, if Russia reacts in some way that's positive or that is judged by Trump to be positive, or worse, that he can sell as being positive, then he may well change his mind in a month's time. So who knows? I think the significant thing about the weapons sales to NATO is when he says it's up to Europe what they do with it, or it's up to NATO what they do with it. Well, does that mean that the United States is no longer going to block the use of these weapons for deep strikes into Russia? Who knows? Because we know that the Chancellor of Germany is much more bullish about this and is much more keen to allow his missiles to strike deep into Russia, which would be quite significant.
If Trump was serious about ending this war, Major General, and he was serious about doing everything he could to force Putin to do that, what might he do? Well, he would give weapons, I think, for a start. I think he could probably do something more on the energy market. I mean, it is a horrifying statistic, and this is not just about Trump, it's about the West in general, that throughout this war we have been contributing to the Russian war effort by still buying fossil fuels from intermediaries. And, so the whole sanctions thing has been a bit of a disaster, really. And one of the unfortunate lessons of that is that China would have looked at that, seen how ineffective the sanctions are, and therefore the threat of sanctions in the Taiwan scenario, the threat is less powerful. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with Sam again, because where Trump talks about tariffs, well, tariffs are things you sell. We shouldn't be selling anything to the Russians. So I think this is largely superficial. What could he do to win the war? He can give them more weapons. He could probably really screw down much tighter on international finance and things. That's my own suggestion, really. So there's not a great deal, really. It's a hard thing to do because the bottom line is this is Ukraine's war, not the United States. Can it still win it, Major General? Can Ukraine still win this war?
It depends what you mean by win. You mean drive all the Russians out of every inch?
Yes.
I think that's most unlikely.
So what's the best case scenario for Ukraine in terms of this conflict ending?
Well, the best case is indeed that Russia collapses and they apologise and pull all their troops back. That's not going to happen. I think we're much more likely to see a sort of stalemate somewhere as Russia exhausts itself. The stories of its economy collapsing seem to be, they're perpetual. It's very hard to know how truthful that is. But if neither side seems capable of total victory, so some sort of stalemate on a Korean model seems to me the most likely option. And we have a frozen conflict in the heart of Europe, which is most uncomfortable.
It is indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Major General Jonathan Shaw, former Assistant Chief of the Defence Staff at the Ministry of Defence, now a consultant for mass security. Keep your calls coming in. What do you make of what you heard from Donald Trump today? And do you believe that he is serious about ending the war in Ukraine? Or is this just more waffle, more bluster, more hot air from a man who knows that he actually hasn't got what it takes to fulfil his pledge to end that conflict and is now frantically trying to cover his own backside and that area?